The sound of my husband's laughter sliced through the dark. I crouched in our neighbor's garden, pressed against the damp brick wall, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Rain soaked through my jacket as I stared at our living room window. The curtains weren't fully drawn, and yellow light spilled out into the night, illuminating the raindrops like tiny falling stars. Daniel was supposed to be alone. That was the whole point of my elaborate deception. The packed suitcase, the airport drop-off, the carefully crafted Instagram posts scheduled to appear throughout the week. I'd spent 3 days hiding in a budget motel across town, watching our security cameras, waiting for something to happen, and now it had. The woman's voice floated through the crack in the window, low, melodious, intimate. I couldn't make out the words, just the tone. Comfortable, familiar. Then Daniel's laugh again. That specific laugh I hadn't heard in months, maybe years. His real laugh. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Maya. My sister's text glowed in the dark. Stop torturing yourself. Either go in or come stay with me. I silenced the phone. 3 months of suspicion had led me here, shivering in the rain, spying on my husband of 8 years. 3 months of late-night calls he took in the bathroom, of unexplained absences, of passwords suddenly changed, of his body beside me in bed, distant as a continent. The front door opened, spilling more light into the darkness. I pressed myself deeper into the shadows. Daniel stepped onto the porch, his arm around a woman I'd never seen before. She was older than I'd expected, maybe mid-50s, with silver-streaked dark hair. They embraced, and he kissed her cheek with easy affection. He whispered something in her ear, and she nodded, squeezing his arm before walking to a modest sedan parked across the street. I slid my phone from my pocket and took a picture, my hands trembling. As the car pulled away, Daniel stood watching, a silhouette in the doorway. His posture was different somehow, lighter, unburdened. The Daniel I used to know before the silences grew between us. I waited until he went back inside, then opened my rideshare app. I'd seen enough for one night. Tomorrow would be day 4 of my surveillance, and I already had what I needed. I'd catch him in the act, confront him with whatever this was. But as I waited for my ride, a notification lit up my screen, an email from Daniel, sent just moments ago to Eliza Mitchell. Subject: Miss you. The house feels empty without you. Hope the symposium is going well. Can't wait to hear all about it when you get back on Saturday. I've been thinking about us. About everything. We need to talk when you get home. Love? Damn, my stomach clenched. 8 years of marriage, and I still couldn't tell if he was lying. 3 months earlier, I would have described my marriage as solid. Not perfect, what marriage is, but fundamentally sound. Daniel and I met in graduate school. He was studying architecture while I pursued art history. We were married within 2 years, both of us certain we'd found our person. We bought a Victorian fixer-upper in the historic district, poured our savings and sweat into renovating it room by room. Daniel designed. I chose the art and furnishings. The house became our shared canvas. For 6 years, we moved in sync. He understood my ambition when I took the curator position at the Westmore Gallery. I respected his late nights at the firm as he climbed toward partner. The first crack appeared so subtly, I almost missed it. Want to see what I've been working on? I asked one evening, excited about a new exhibition I was curating. Contemporary women artists, my passion project. Daniel glanced up from his laptop, his eyes not quite focusing on me. Can you tell me tomorrow? I need to finish this proposal. A small moment. Hardly worth noting, but it was followed by others. Dinners where his mind was elsewhere. Weekends when he was catching up on work, but his laptop remained closed. His phone constantly in his hand. Then came the call I wasn't meant to overhear. I was in the garden, coming back inside through the kitchen door when I heard his voice. Low and intense. I can't keep doing this, he was saying. It's not fair to her. A pause. No, I haven't told her yet. I don't know how. I froze, hand on the doorknob. I know. It's just harder than I thought it would be. Another pause. Saturday works. She'll be at that gallery thing all day. I slipped back outside, heart hammering. When I finally came inside, making plenty of noise, Daniel was casually scrolling through his phone, a perfect picture of innocence. "How's the garden?" he asked, smiling that smile that once made my knees weak. "Fine," I said. "The roses need pruning." That night, for the first time in our marriage, I went through his phone while he slept. Nothing. No suspicious texts, no unknown numbers, no secret email accounts. If anything, his digital life seemed too pristine, as if it had been scrubbed clean. The next week, I noticed a charge on our credit card for a hotel downtown. On a day Daniel had told me he was visiting a job site in the suburbs. When I asked about it casually over dinner, his expression never changed. The client wanted to meet downtown instead. I expensed lunch but forgot to expense the parking at the hotel. "I'll get the firm to reimburse us." A perfectly reasonable explanation. Yet something in his voice, a slight tightening, set off alarms. I began keeping a log. Late nights. Unexplained absences. Phone calls taken in another room. Texts that made him smile before quickly putting his phone away. New clothes. A different cologne. The classic signs like a checklist from a "Is your spouse cheating?" article. My sister Maya noticed the change in me before I fully admitted it to myself. "You look exhausted," she said bluntly over our monthly lunch. "What's going on?" I stirred my untouched soup. "I think Daniel's having an affair." Maya's eyebrows shot up. "Daniel, are you sure?" "He looks at you like you're his oxygen." "Used to," I corrected. "Now he looks at his phone." Maya reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Have you asked him directly?" I laughed bitterly. "And give him time to construct the perfect lie?" "No thanks. Liza, that's not healthy. You need to talk to him." "I need proof," I said. "Otherwise he'll just deny it, and I'll second-guess myself into believing him." Maya's expression softened with concern. "This isn't you. The Eliza I know doesn't hide in the shadows. She confronts things head-on. But that Eliza existed before Julian. Before I'd discovered my college boyfriend's 2-year deception with my roommate, only because I came home early from a conference with food poisoning. Before I'd watched him transform from loving partner to gaslighting stranger in the space of a single conversation, Daniel had been different. Until suddenly he wasn't. 2 weeks after my lunch with Maya, the opportunity presented itself. An invitation to a week-long art symposium in Chicago, all expenses paid. I'd been angling for this invitation for months. It was a significant professional opportunity. "That's fantastic," Daniel said when I told him, genuine pride in his voice. "You deserve this recognition." I studied his face, searching for relief or calculation. Found nothing but apparent sincerity. "You'll be okay without me for a week?" I asked carefully. He pulled me into an embrace. "I'll miss you like crazy, but I'll survive. You've been working toward this for years." That night, as he slept beside me, the idea formed. I didn't have to go. I could pretend to leave, then watch him when he thought he was unobserved. Find out once and for all what happened to my husband when I wasn't there. It wasn't rational. It wasn't healthy. But by morning, the plan was fully formed in my mind. I called Maya the next day. "I need a favor." "Why do I already feel nervous?" she asked. "I need you to drive me to the airport on Sunday, but not actually drop me off. Then I need you to pick me up again and take me to a motel." Silence. "Eliza, please tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing." "I need to know, Maya." "This is insane," she said. "This is not how functional adults handle relationship issues. Will you help me or not?" She sighed. "God help me, yes, but only because I'm afraid of what you'll do if I don't." On Sunday morning, Daniel kissed me goodbye at our front door. "Call me when you land," he said. "I will," I promised, the lie bitter on my tongue. Maya's car was idling at the curb. I wheeled my suitcase down the walkway, feeling Daniel's eyes on my back. I didn't look back, afraid my face would betray me. "This is a terrible idea," Maya said as we drove away. "Like spectacularly bad." "I know," I replied, watching our house disappear in the side mirror. but I'm doing it anyway. By day 4 of my self-imposed surveillance, I'd established a routine. Mornings at the motel, monitoring our home security cameras through my phone. Afternoons parked down the street in Maya's borrowed car, watching the house. Evenings skulking around our neighborhood like a character from a bad detective novel. So far, I'd learned that my husband ate cereal for dinner when I wasn't home, left dirty dishes in the sink, and spent an inordinate amount of time on his laptop on the couch, rather than in his office. Nothing incriminating until tonight. Until the woman with silver-streaked hair laughing in our living room. I returned to the motel after my pathetic stakeout, soaking wet and no closer to the truth. Daniel's email sat unanswered in my inbox. We need to talk when you get home. The universal preamble to bad news. I took a hot shower, trying to wash away the shame of what I'd become. A woman so insecure, so damaged by past betrayal that she'd rather spy on her husband than have an honest conversation. Maya was right. This wasn't me. Or at least, it hadn't been. I was toweling my hair when my phone rang. Maya, please tell me you're not still sitting in the rain outside your house, she said when I answered. I'm back at the motel, I assured her, but I saw something tonight. A woman. Oh, Liza. Her voice softened. I'm so sorry. She was older. Maybe his boss? But they seemed close. Did you confront them? No, I admitted. I just watched them like some pathetic voyeur. This isn't healthy, Liza. This whole situation. Either go home and talk to your husband, or come stay with me until your trip is officially over. I need to know what's happening, I insisted. Tomorrow I'll find out. I promise. After we hung up, I lay on the motel bed staring at the water stains on the ceiling. Was I really prepared for the truth? For the possibility that the life I'd built with Daniel was built on sand? Morning brought renewed determination. I'd wasted enough time in shadows and half measures. Today, I would follow Daniel wherever he went. And if that meant confronting him and the mystery woman, so be it. I parked Maya's car a block away and settled in for surveillance. At 10:15, Daniel emerged from our house, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. He looked around before getting into his car, an uncharacteristically furtive gesture that made my heart sink. I followed at a safe distance as he drove across town, eventually parking outside a small, nondescript office building in a mixed commercial district. He checked his watch, then entered the building. I waited 15 minutes before following. The building directory in the small lobby listed various businesses, a tax preparer, a web design company, 2 therapy practices, and a law firm. No indication which one Daniel might have entered. I was contemplating my next move when the elevator doors opened and Daniel stepped out, deep in conversation with the silver-haired woman from the night before. They were so engrossed they walked right past me, not 3 feet away. I turned my face, heart pounding, but needn't have worried. They wouldn't have noticed if I'd been wearing a neon sign. Making progress, the woman was saying. But you need to tell her soon, Daniel. Secrets like this corrode relationships from the inside. I know, Daniel replied, his voice strained. I'm planning to, when she gets back from her trip. They pushed through the lobby doors and stood on the sidewalk, still talking. I moved closer to the door, straining to hear. Same time on Thursday? The woman asked. Daniel nodded. Thank you, Dr. Winters. For everything, Dr. Winters. A doctor. I frantically scanned my memory of the building directory. One of the therapy practices was listed under Winters Counseling Services. My husband was seeing a therapist, and he hadn't told me. They parted ways, Dr. Winters heading back into the building, Daniel walking to his car. I waited until he drove away before approaching the directory again. Winters Counseling Services, Suite 307 Doctor. Caroline Winters. Psy.D, LMFT Marriage and Family Therapy. Individual Counseling. Grief Support Marriage Therapy. Individual Counseling? Grief Support? Which was Daniel seeking, and why hadn't he told me? I stood in the lobby, paralyzed by indecision. Part of me wanted to march upstairs and demand answers from Dr. Winters. A more rational part knew that would be inappropriate and futile. Therapist-client confidentiality would prevent her from telling me anything. Instead, I did something even more irrational. I followed Daniel. His next stop was a coffee shop downtown. He went inside, and through the window I saw him join someone at a table in the back. A man. It took me a moment to recognize Jason Carpenter, his colleague from the architecture firm. They talked intensely for nearly an hour. At one point, Daniel covered his face with his hands, his shoulders shaking. Jason reached across the table, squeezing Daniel's arm in a gesture of comfort. Was Daniel crying? In all our years together, I'd seen him cry exactly twice, at his father's funeral and on our wedding day. When they finally emerged, Daniel's eyes were red-rimmed. They embraced briefly before parting, a gesture more intimate than I'd ever seen between them at company gatherings. I sat in Maya's car, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My husband was in therapy. He was confiding in a friend, but not in me. He was clearly in some kind of emotional distress, and I was hiding in a car like a coward instead of talking to him. I followed him to one more location, a small jewelry store in the Arts District, where he spent nearly 40 minutes. When he emerged, he was carrying a small bag, which he carefully placed in his glove compartment before driving home. Jewelry. The most cliched gift for a guilty husband. Yet nothing else I'd seen today fit the pattern of infidelity. I drove back to the motel in a fog of confusion. As soon as I closed the door behind me, I called Maya. "I think I've made a terrible mistake," I said when she answered. "Did he catch you?" she asked, alarmed. "No," I said. "But I don't think he's having an affair. He's seeing a therapist. And he bought jewelry." "A therapist? Daniel?" "Dr. Caroline Winters." "Marriage and family therapy?" Maya was quiet for a moment. "So he's either having a breakdown or planning to divorce you. And instead of being there for him, you're hiding in a motel spying on him. Put that way, it sounded even worse." "I think I need to go home," I said. "Hallelujah," Maya replied. Finally, a sensible thought. "But I can't just show up. I'm supposed to be in Chicago for 3 more days. So, tell him you came home early because you missed him." "It's not even entirely a lie," I shook my head, forgetting she couldn't see me. "No, I need to understand what's happening first. I need to know what I'm walking into." "Liza, trust me, Maya. 1 more day. Tomorrow I'll follow him again, and then I'll decide what to do." After we hung up, I lay on the bed, replaying the day's observations. Daniel in therapy. Daniel confiding in Jason. Daniel buying jewelry. "We need to talk when you get home." I pulled out my laptop and opened our shared cloud storage, scrolling through recent files. Daniel was meticulous about backing up important documents. If something significant was happening in his life, there might be a clue there. Nothing unusual in the recent uploads. Financial statements, work documents, photos from his firm's holiday party 3 months ago. On a hunch, I searched for Winters and therapy. Nothing. Then I searched our email archive. Again, nothing related to Dr. Winters or therapy, but I did find something odd. An email thread from 4 months ago between Daniel and a Dr. Rebecca Chen at University Hospital. The subject line, "Follow-up appointment results." My breath caught. Was Daniel sick? Was that what this was all about? I opened the thread with trembling fingers. "Mr. Mitchell, your follow-up blood work and scans look good. The treatment plan appears to be working well. As discussed, please continue to monitor for the symptoms we talked about, and don't hesitate to call if anything changes. Your next appointment is scheduled for March 15th at 2:00 p.m. best." Dr. Chen Daniel's reply, "Dr. Chen, thank you for the update. I'm relieved to hear the results are positive. Regarding our discussion about disclosure to family members, I've made the decision to wait until I have a more complete picture before telling my wife. I hope you understand and can continue to respect my privacy in this matter. Best regards, Daniel Mitchell." I stared at the screen, blood rushing in my ears. Daniel was sick. Sick enough to need treatment, monitoring, and follow-up appointments. And he'd explicitly asked his doctor not to tell me. Why? What could possibly be so terrible that he couldn't share it with me? I searched for more emails from Dr. Chen but found nothing else. The appointment mentioned would have been over 6 months ago now. What had happened since? My mind raced through possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Cancer? Heart disease? Some rare genetic condition? And suddenly, the pattern of the past 3 months made perfect, horrible sense. The secrecy, the emotional distance, the therapy. He was protecting me from something devastating. I grabbed my phone and booked a rideshare. I couldn't wait another day. I needed to go home. Now. The house was dark when the car dropped me off, save for a faint light in the upstairs window. Our bedroom. It was just past 11. Daniel would be getting ready for bed. I stood on the sidewalk, staring at our home, the porch where we'd shared countless summer evenings, the garden we'd planted together, the front door he'd carried me through after our wedding. Whatever was happening behind that door, I would face it with him. No more hiding. No more spying. I'd spent the ride home rehearsing what to say. How to explain my deception without making this about me. How to create space for him to tell me whatever truth he'd been keeping. I unlocked the door quietly, set down my bag, and climbed the stairs. The bedroom door was ajar, soft light spilling into the hallway. I took a deep breath and pushed it open. Daniel was sitting on the edge of our bed, his back to me, shoulders hunched. Scattered across the duvet were photographs, dozens of them. He was holding one, staring at it so intently he didn't hear me enter. "Daniel?" I said softly. He startled, turning toward me with wide eyes. "Eliza? What? How are you here?" I moved closer, my eyes drawn to the photos on the bed. Us, younger versions of ourselves. Our early days together, our wedding, vacations, ordinary moments turned precious by time. "I never went to Chicago," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I've been watching you, following you." His expression shifted from shock to confusion. "You've been... Why would you do that?" "Because I thought you were having an affair." The words hung between us, ugly and naked. Daniel stared at me as if I were a stranger. "An affair? You thought I was cheating on you? You've been so distant. Taking calls in private. Coming home late. I found the hotel charge on our card. And then today, I followed you to Dr. Winter's office, and to meet Jason, and to a jewelry store." The evidence sounded flimsy even to my own ears. Daniel looked down at the photograph in his hand, then back at me. Something shifted in his eyes. Hurt, then a flash of anger, then profound weariness. "You've been spying on me for days instead of talking to me?" His voice was quiet, controlled, but I could hear the pain underneath. "After 8 years of marriage, that's what you think of me?" "I found the emails," I said. "Between you and Dr. Chen. I know you're sick, Daniel. I know you've been keeping it from me." He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. When he opened them again, there was a resignation that frightened me more than anger would have. "I'm not sick. Eliza, the treatments, the follow-ups, were for genetic testing." He set down the photograph and stood, moving to the dresser. From the top drawer, he removed a small velvet box, similar to the bag I'd seen him place in his glove compartment earlier. "What kind of genetic testing?" I asked, confused. He returned to the bed, sitting heavily. "The kind you do when you're trying to determine if you should have children." The room seemed to tilt. "Children? But we decided 5 years ago that we weren't ready," he corrected gently. "And then we just stopped talking about it. Work was demanding for both of us. The renovation needed attention. There was always a reason to put it off." I sat beside him, careful not to disturb the photographs. "I don't understand. Why wouldn't you talk to me about this?" "I tried," he said. "About 6 months ago, I brought it up, and you shut down the conversation. Said it wasn't a good time to discuss it. So I thought I'd do some preliminary work on my own. My father died of early onset Alzheimer's. My uncle had Huntington's. I wanted to know if I was carrying time bombs in my DNA before having a serious conversation about bringing children into the world. The memory came. Back to me, Daniel mentioning kids over dinner. me dismissing it because I was preoccupied with a difficult installation at the gallery. I hadn't realized how important the conversation was to him. The results? I asked, almost afraid to hear. Clean, he said. No genetic markers for either condition. Relief washed through me, followed immediately by shame. So Dr. Winters is helping me work through some things. He sighed. My fear of becoming my father. The grief I still carry for him. The disconnect I've been feeling in our marriage. Why couldn't you tell me you were in therapy? He met my eyes directly. Because every time I tried to have a real conversation with you these past months, you were physically present, but emotionally elsewhere. It felt like talking to a wall. And then when you did engage, it was with suspicion, checking my phone when you thought I wasn't looking, questioning my whereabouts. The accusation stung because it was true. I'd been so focused on finding evidence of betrayal, I'd become the one creating distance between us. And Jason? Today you were upset, Daniel nodded. I was talking to him about us, about how to reconnect with you. He and Sarah went through something similar after their second child was born. He laughed humorlessly. The irony of taking marriage advice from Jason isn't lost on me. But I was desperate. And the jewelry store? I asked, though I was beginning to suspect the answer. Without a word, he opened the velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold locket, vintage in style. He pressed a tiny clasp, and it opened to reveal a miniature version of our wedding photo on one side. The other side was empty. It's our 10th anniversary in 2 months, he said. I was going to fill the second side with a new photo, something that represented our future, not just our past. He nodded toward the scattered photographs. I've been going through our albums trying to remind myself why we work. Why we've always worked, until recently. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I thought I was losing you, I whispered. I thought you were pulling away. I was, he admitted, but not for the reasons you imagined. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you what I want, what I need, without making you feel pressured or inadequate. Dr. Winters has been helping me find the words. What do you want, Daniel? My voice trembled. He took a deep breath. I want a family, Liza. With you. I'm 36. You're 34. If we're going to do this, I don't want to wait much longer. He reached for my hand. But more than that, I want us back. The real us. The couple that talks to each other instead of assuming the worst. The partners who face things together. I looked down at our intertwined fingers, then at the photographs surrounding us on the bed. Visual evidence of a love I'd begun to doubt. I want that too, I said. I'm so sorry I didn't trust you. And I'm sorry I didn't fight harder to reach you. He squeezed my hand. When did we stop talking to each other, Liza? Really talking? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe when work got crazy for both of us. Maybe after your dad died. Maybe it was so gradual we didn't notice until the silence was deafening. We sat there, surrounded by memories, the weight of unspoken truths finally lifting between us. What happens now? I asked. Daniel touched my cheek, wiping away a tear with his thumb. Now we start over. We really talk. About children. About therapy. About trust. About all the things we've been avoiding. I'd like that, I said. Then gathering my courage, would you want me to come to therapy with you sometime? With Dr. Winters? The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise after the longest night. I'd like that very much. He leaned forward, pressing his forehead to mine. No more surveillance operations, okay? Next time you're worried about something, just ask me. I laughed through my tears. Deal, he pulled back slightly, studying my face. You know, for someone who was supposedly at a symposium in Chicago, you look remarkably like a woman who's been sleeping in a cheap motel and sitting in a car for days. That obvious, huh? Only to someone who knows every line of your face. He brushed my hair back. Where were you staying? Please tell me not that Roach Motel on Lincoln. The very same, I admitted sheepishly. Daniel shuddered. Your sister was in on this, I assume? Reluctantly. She told me I was making a terrible mistake. Remind me to thank her for trying to talk some sense into you. He began gathering the photographs, stacking them carefully. How about we get you into a hot shower, and then I'll make us some tea, and we can start having one of those long overdue conversations? I nodded, overwhelmed by gratitude for this man who still wanted to talk to me after I'd doubted him so profoundly. I'd like that. As I stood to head to the bathroom, Daniel caught my hand once more. Eliza? For what it's worth, I've never wanted anyone but you. Not since the day we met. The simple truth of his words washed over me, healing something broken inside. I know that now, I said, and I won't forget it again. The morning sun streamed through our bedroom window, painting golden stripes across the rumpled sheets. I watched Daniel sleeping beside me, his features relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in months. After our long conversation the night before, stretching into the early hours of the morning, we'd fallen asleep tangled together, emotionally exhausted but lighter. We'd talked about everything. His therapy sessions with Dr. Winters, his grief for his father, which had resurfaced unexpectedly as he contemplated becoming a parent himself. My lingering trust issues from past betrayals. The subtle ways we'd both withdrawn from each other, creating a vacuum where doubts could flourish, and we'd talked about children. Really talked about it for the first time in years. I'm scared, I'd admitted in the darkness. What if I'm terrible at it? What if I resent giving up parts of my career? What if we lose us in the process of becoming parents? Instead of dismissing my fears or trying to solve them, Daniel had simply held me closer. Those are all valid concerns, he'd said. I'm scared too. But I think we'd regret not trying more than we'd regret trying, even if it's hard. For the first time in months, I'd fallen asleep feeling truly connected to my husband, the distance between us finally bridged. Now, watching him sleep, I felt a surge of love so intense it brought tears to my eyes. I'd nearly destroyed us with my suspicion and fear. The thought of how close I'd come to losing him, not to another woman, but to my own inability to trust, was sobering. Daniel stirred, his eyes fluttering open. When he saw me watching him, he smiled sleepily. Morning, he murmured, reaching for my hand. You're really here. I half expected to wake up and find you gone again. I'm really here, I assured him, squeezing his fingers. And I'm staying. He pulled me closer, kissing my forehead. Good, because I have plans for us today. Oh? Mm-hmm. Starting with breakfast at that cafe you love on Harper Street. I smiled against his chest. The one with the ridiculous wait times on weekends? The very same. I called yesterday and made a reservation. They're holding a table for us at 10:30. Yesterday, when he thought I was still in Chicago, the realization must have shown on my face because Daniel chuckled. Yes, I was planning to tell you about it when you got back on Saturday. Surprise, honey. I made brunch reservations to celebrate your return. Not quite as romantic as I'd planned, but the sentiment stands. I propped myself up on one elbow. You're not angry anymore? About what I did? Daniel considered this, his expression thoughtful. I was hurt. I still am, a little. But angry? No, not anymore. He tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. Dr. Winters would say we're both responsible for the breakdown in communication that led us here. Very diplomatic of Dr. Winters, I said. She also said, and I quote, when you feel like your partner isn't telling you something, ask them directly instead of creating elaborate spy scenarios. I winced. She didn't say that. No, he admitted with a grin. But she probably would. I collapsed back against the pillows, covering my face with my hands. God, I still can't believe I did that. I turned into a crazy person. Daniel gently pulled my hands away. Hey, you're not crazy. You were scared. There's a difference. His expression grew serious. We both made mistakes, Liza. I should have been more direct about what I was feeling, what I wanted. Instead, I withdrew and tried to figure it all out on my own. That's very evolved of you, I said. Did Dr. Winters teach you that too? She might have mentioned something about taking responsibility for my part in relationship dynamics. His smile was self-deprecating. Turns out therapy is useful for more than just working through daddy issues. I traced the line of his jaw with my fingertip. I meant what I said last night. I'd like to go with you sometime, if Dr. Winters thinks it would be helpful. She does, Daniel said. She's been suggesting couples therapy for weeks. We lay in comfortable silence for a few minutes, sunlight warming our skin, the familiar weekend sounds of our neighborhood filtering through the open window. So, I finally said, about the children conversation. Daniel's eyes met mine, cautious but hopeful. Yeah? I've been thinking. Maybe we could start by babysitting Maya's kids for a weekend, get a taste of what we'd be in for. His face lit up. I think that's a fantastic idea. And maybe... I took a deep breath. Maybe I could stop taking my birth control. Not actively trying yet, but not preventing either. See what happens naturally for a while. Daniel's expression was a mixture of surprise and joy. Are you sure? Last night you seemed still terrified, I admitted. But also, hopeful. I keep thinking about what you said, about regretting not trying more than regretting trying. And I think you're right. He pulled me close, burying his face in my hair. Thank you, he whispered, for considering it, for being willing to take the leap with me. Well, we've always been a good team, I said. At least when we're actually communicating. Speaking of communication, Daniel said, pulling back to, look at me. There's something else I've been wanting to tell you. My heart skipped a beat. Old habits die hard. What's that? I've been offered a teaching position at the university. 1 day a week, advanced architectural design. I'd keep my role at the firm, just scaled back slightly. Daniel, that's wonderful. You've always wanted to teach. I have, he agreed, and the more regular hours would be helpful if we do have a child. The pieces were falling into place. His conversations with colleagues, his reassessment of priorities, his vision for our future. When would you start? I asked. Fall semester, if you think it's a good idea. Daniel, of course it's a good idea. It's your dream. He shrugged, suddenly shy. Our dreams. That's what matters. I don't want to make any big life changes without us both being on board. I pressed my palm to his cheek, overwhelmed by tenderness. I'm on board, all the way. He turned his head to kiss my palm. Then it settled. Teaching, potential baby making, couples therapy. Big year ahead of us, Mrs. Mitchell. The biggest, I agreed. Then, unable to resist. And to think I almost ruined it by convincing myself you were having a midlife crisis affair with a silver-haired vixen. Daniel burst out laughing. You mean Dr. Winters? She's 62 and happily married to her wife of 30 years. I groaned, burying my face in his shoulder. Stop. The embarrassment may actually kill me. If it helps, she thought it was hilarious when I told her you'd been spying on us. I lifted my head, horrified. You told her? Of course I told her. It's therapy. I'm supposed to tell her everything. His eyes danced with amusement. She says she's looking forward to meeting you. I'll never be able to look her in the eye. Sure you will, he assured me. She's seen worse. Much worse. I glanced at the clock on the nightstand. We should get up if we're going to make that brunch reservation. Daniel pulled me back as I tried to rise. One more thing, he said, his tone shifting to something more serious. What is it? I love you, Eliza. Through all of this, the distance, the silence, even your ridiculous surveillance operation, that never changed. Not for a second. My throat tightened with emotion. I love you too. Even when I was sitting in that car, convinced you were betraying me, I never stopped loving you. Promise me something, he said. Promise me we won't let the silence win again. Whatever happens, with kids, with work, with life. We keep talking, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I leaned forward and sealed the promise with a kiss. I promise. As we finally rose to start our day, I thought about the woman I'd been just days ago, hunched in a car, cold and suspicious, certain my marriage was ending. How wrong I'd been. Not about the change in Daniel, that had been real, but about what it meant. Sometimes I realized the greatest act of love isn't grand passion or dramatic sacrifice, but simple honesty. The courage to say, I'm changing. I want something different. I need you to change with me. And sometimes the greatest act of faith is to listen and believe you are still loved. You are still chosen. Even as we both become new versions of ourselves. Daniel extended his hand to me. Ready for brunch? I took it, squeezing his fingers. Ready for everything.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.